dog genes do not remain in the wild coyote population for several reasons. Coyotes don't tolerate domestic dogs in their territories, especially during breeding season, and will kill dogs if they find them. More than likely, any pairings between coyotes and domestic dogs would be a female coyote and a domestic dog. While the female is pregnant and has puppies in the den, a male coyote brings the female food. A domestic dog does not provision a female coyote. This would make it difficult for the female to raise pups on her own. Any coy dog pups that survive have a domestic dog heat cycle. Coy dog females have puppies at the beginning and end of winter, when food is scarce. If there were dog genes in the wild population, they would quickly show up, and we would see coyotes with curly tails and floppy ears.
And it's interesting, in spite of the fact that early on there were specimens of coy dogs when coyotes first arrived and probably had difficulty finding coyote mates. But there's no evidence in the recent genetic analysis that there's any dog genetic component in this eastern coyote population, which sort of kills the position of some people that the large size of the coyotes in the east may be due to their historic hybridization with dogs. Dogs seem to play a very small role in that, and what genetic component may have been in the population briefly seems to, over the last 70 years that they've been here, been eliminated.
During preliminary eastern coyote research, skull measurements to distinguish western coyotes from dogs were used. This often erroneously placed eastern coyote-like animals in the coy dog category, which helped fabricate the coy dog theory. Coyote behavior in the Adirondack Mountains of New York has changed in the past 20 years. Behavior has changed because they are eating more white-tailed deer and are staying together longer as a family unit.
The eastern coyote has some ancestry with the Algonquin wolf. It's variable between individuals. It's not exactly, the same level of ancestry. It seems to be a little stronger in the northern New York populations than in those in central New York. The fact that only the Algonquin wolf and the red wolf are the only two wolves that appear to readily hybridize with the coyote may lend some credence or suggestion to the idea that they evolved from a common ancestor. There's no evidence yet that the coyotes in the west have hybridized with gray wolf populations out there or even on up into Alaska.
Coyotes compete socially with both gray and red foxes for dens and territories. Red fox found in Virginia, Pennsylvania, and New England were introductions from Europe in the 1750s. Gray fox favor forested habitats, and red fox prefer open fields. Because of forest fragmentation, gray fox have declined in numbers. In summer, gray and red fox habitat utilization typically do not overlap. However, there is some habitat overlap in the winter. Red fox utilize forests in winter for shelter. There is evidence that coyotes and gray fox can coexist because gray fox are more secretive than reds, or perhaps because grays can outmaneuver coyotes. Gray fox climb trees. In Yellowstone, wolves do not tolerate coyotes and have cut the coyote population in half. This has allowed red fox to become reestablished in Yellowstone. Conversely, coyotes in the east may have interbred with wolves, but where and when would this have occurred? Were coyotes present during European colonization? They may have mistaken coyotes for wolves during predator eradication. Some do call coyote little wolf. However, Eastern Native Americans do not have traditional coyote stories.
Well, there are many other species that were also found in the fossil record in the East, which are no longer with us. Well, coyotes have been found in the fossil record almost all over the entire United States, including the East, places in Maryland and Pennsylvania. I think the fossil record has very little bearing on what might have been here in more recent years, say in the last several hundred years. They just seem to have been rather ubiquitous, along with gray wolf specimens and a whole lot of other species that are simply not with us any longer today.
Coyote populations are usually able to rebound from population crashes. The more pressure we put on coyotes, the more pups they'll produce. Unexploited populations are lower and more stable than exploited. Coyotes may compensate for increased mortality by producing more females than males. An overrepresentation of females is normally associated with colonizing populations.
I think you could sum up coyotes' ability to adapt in one of my favorite sayings, and that is that God created coyotes with 3 legs and a spare. They can put up with so many kinds of bad situations and still reproduce and form a pack and produce some viable young. So there's many ways that they adapt to changing environments. I mean, studying coyotes in the face of heavy mortality is, no different than studying a society during a war.
If coyotes moved into the east, where did they come from? Did they move in across the Mississippi River, or did they come from north of the Great Lakes, from Canada, where Algonquin wolves live?